Good afternoon, AMD investors. It is Laser here with a velocity analysis update on AMD. This is the first time I'm dropping a technical analysis video on AMD. I've been watching AMD for many years. I've never covered it. This is the first time I'm going to cover it. So if you're an AMD investor and you're trying to make sense of the price action as to where it's going to go long term and also short term, you're going to want to stay tuned in and locked in here. And I'm planning to cover AMD once per Sunday, maybe a little bit more than that. And we're going to do things a little bit different. We don't talk about fundamentals here on this channel. For those of you that are new, we actually look at the stock at the velocity analysis. And for those that don't know, on the bottom here is a indicator that I use that helps give me an edge in the market and also helps tell me what is the price doing under the surface. It exposes how fast some of those moves are. And when you look at the price as a whole, you don't quite see how fast it's moving. And there's a couple other nuances that are with AMD. So you're going to want to stay tuned here. You can see here that I have a resistance line at 540. And you can see it's kind of almost made a rounding top on AMD. So, and again, I want to remind for anyone who's looking for the AMD stock analysis, this is the place where you're going to get information that you won't find on any other YouTube channel. You're going to get a very unique perspective where we're going to dive in from a velocity perspective, and we're going to give you a technical analysis. So $540 resistance, it's creating this rounding top over here, and it's currently trading at $515.50 AMD. And below that, as we can clearly see, there's a gap to fill at $350. And it's also, to me, I believe that would be a major support level if the resistance doesn't break. So that's the major question. Now, when we dive in and we look at the velocity, it starts to give us hints. It starts to give us an edge against the market. And there's a couple of tricks that I've used when it came to AMD to try and help and find that bottom. Now, before I even go into that, I want to talk about one of the most exciting things that I see here. And I've seen this on AMD over and over and over again. I've been actually watching AMD for the past 4 to 5 years, but this is my first time covering it. And I'm seeing something that I saw over and over and over again. And what was it? What exactly do I see here? So I'm going to bring your attention real quick to the velocity. And this is measuring, by the way, down here, how fast that move is coming in. And we could see this is a very unique setup, but AMD has had this setup before. And let me tell you, it's bullish when you see this. What do we see here? We see a top, a higher high on the velocity, comes down and forms a lower high here. Now, but what did the price do? So if I bring your attention to AMD, we had a top here at 469 back in May, pushed higher, ended up making a new high at 538. But what did the velocity tell us? And also, you can kind of see it on the volume. It told us that buyers were not as enthusiastic at buying at those levels. They were slowing down. This is what I call, it's a classic bearish divergence, but in return, it ends up setting up something super bullish. Let me show you. So because we now have a lower high here, I can draw a trend line. And this is something that has been happening on repeat for AMD. Some of the best setups on AMD happen when you get this bearish divergence setup. The trick, and this is the $1 million question, and maybe this is the answer you guys are looking for, is trying to time when that reversal and when that bottom comes in. And I can share with you a couple of tricks that has worked for me and helped confirm when that bottom kind of comes in on AMD. Now, 540 is resistance, and I know some of you guys are thinking about, well, what's going to happen if it breaks above 540? And I have here a little price target. I do believe there's going to be a time and a place where AMD will be quadruple digits. Now, Will it stay at that price, or will they split the stock so it becomes more affordable? A lot of your top Mag 7 companies, once they get to that $1,000 valuation, they end up splitting the stock. Same thing happened to NVIDIA. It was trading near 1,000 or over 1,000, and then they split the stock. Same thing happened to Apple. Same thing happened to Tesla. I do believe something very similar will also happen to AMD. So, but we're not there yet. So let's talk about why when we've actually seen this setup before. Because now that I can draw a trend line that shows the velocity, I can pretty much say, okay, we're below the trend line. Haven't broken above this. We haven't broken above this trend line, so the velocity itself is in a downtrend. You can even see from a price point of view, the price is also in a downtrend. We're going to change that to orange. I like orange. Orange will look a little better. And so is the bottom in? I mean, a lot of people are trying to figure that out. Like 420, if you kind of got in at 420, got that dip, it's already like almost, what is it, a 20% bounce? That was a huge bounce. 20% bounce. So how do we know if that bottom is in? Let me tell you. Now, this is going to be very important. We're going to come back. Let's rewind. Now, if you remember in the beginning of the video, I talked about how I've watched AMD make very, very similar setups in the past before. One of my favorite setups was back in 2023. We have to rewind a little bit because the setup is very similar. I want to bring your attention right over here where the price managed to make a higher high, as we can see over here, but the velocity made a lower high. So that was your bearish divergence, but it does something each time you get that bearish divergence. It does something very, very special. It leaves behind a resistance line. So do you see this blue line right over here? Well, how do I make that? I made that by connecting that higher high. And it also leaves behind a resistance line on the velocity. Now, let me tell you something here. And I remember watching AMD back in 2023. If I were to draw out a trend line and try and identify, okay, when is this velocity going to break? We knew when it made this big bounce, it was a big time velocity break. Like that was a momentum is shifting here. And that helped signal where and when that bottom came in. And there's another trick, and I'll get to that in a second here. But this is the most important part. Notice after the velocity broke out and made a higher low, and the velocity made a higher low. Notice how the price didn't make a higher low back in 2023. I know some of you might be watching here are thinking, well, why are you showing me 2023? Like that's like 3 years ago. It's important because this is a behavior of how AMD stock ends up behaving. And for those of you that haven't traded AMD during this time, there were so many people like, I think the bottom's in. I think the bottom's in. I think the bottom's in. And it's like constantly like it chopped up before you kind of got the reversal. Now, what did it do when it reversed? Take a look. When AMD reversed, that leftover resistance ended up becoming a magnet, and so much that it ended up breaking above. It became support, and then you got a huge move where it was setting up for the next big move. So now let's fast forward to 2026, the current time. We have a very similar setup. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, okay, could we do the same thing to help predict the future price? Yes, I believe so. So we have a lower high, and I'm going to highlight that on the velocity as we did back in 2023. And there's also multiple examples of this, but I'm just going to show you this one in particular because that was the one that I remember the most. We're going to delete this. We're going to delete that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw you something here. Notice this is resistance. Let's make that nice and thick so you guys can see. This was resistance that got left behind. So whenever AMD is done trading in this chop zone, and let me just put that, I want to put that one blue line back. There we go. I want to keep that. That's an important line for me. And whenever it's ready, like a magnet, I believe that it will run and it will chase the top of that resistance. The question is, was there enough accumulation that has taken place in here to give it enough firepower to push up? Never mind the news, never mind the fundamentals. What is the price doing? What is the volume doing? That's what we talk about here. And so I do believe AMD is a special stock. I do believe it will tag in the future this resistance line. Now, if you're sitting and trying to time this bottom on AMD, it's one of the hardest things to do is time a bottom on a stock. The beautiful thing is when we use velocity to give us that edge, we could take a look and objectively determine when that momentum shifts and when it's going to be the best risk to reward timing to time that bottom. And what I know right now, and I want to talk to you, I'm going to tell you straight up, I do not think the bottom is in on AMD. I think it's looking good. I think there's some really good news and some bullish things. I think next week we could see a test of 539, 540. Heck, it could even go to 550. But I believe what's in store. And I'm just telling you, I'm not telling this to you to make you guys kind of like upset. I do believe there's going to be another leg lower. Here's what's working against AMD at the moment. The 200-day moving average on the velocity is currently curling down. Anytime the 200-day moving average is curling down and the price is moving up, these bounces that you get on AMD, they're counter trend bounces. So you got to understand that you got to look at these bounces a little bit with a bearish bias. Hey, like the trend hasn't flipped yet. We haven't even broken above this velocity trend. So for me, my expectation is that AMD, after it's done bouncing, will make another leg lower. Nothing goes straight down in a straight line. Nothing goes straight up in a straight line. Now, if we were to look and just look at the volume, we haven't seen there is some volume coming up here, but we haven't seen a huge spike in volume that said like smart money is going deep on this yet. And so to me, this looks like, and if I were being honest, and I can get this wrong, but this is my opinion here based off my experience, I think this was an original A bounce. I think this was the first leg lower, momentum shifted, and you're now getting a counter trend bounce. It's the B wave bounce that we see, and it's going to be followed up with a C wave to form that bottom. Now it's not going to be in a 1, 2, 3 smooth line, and it's gonna chop a bit. But when you measure it out, and this is a simple tool, guys. You can do this with TradingView. It's very simple. You can measure and estimate. So if 540 ends up being the top, and I'm just going to pretend that ends up being the top, and it comes down over here, you can measure roughly where it can go. It can go from A to B, and if it goes to right up to 550, maybe it gives you one little double top at 600. If it did that, you could see a push back down to 350. You could see something like that. And that's what I think is actually going to happen. So from a velocity perspective, from a 24-hour point of view, it's still bearish, the trend, but it doesn't tell the full story. It doesn't tell the full picture. So 2 more time frames that we're going to look at before we come to a conclusion as to where AMD is going. We're going to look at the 4-hour time frame. 4-hour is actually looking quite good. I like what I see in the 4-hour, and I'm going to tell you what I like. So already the 4-hour, it's a much faster time frame, is telling us that the trend is breaking. This velocity downtrend is breaking, and it's preparing to make a larger move. So it's currently trading at 514. I believe it's going to make an honest attempt at 540, potentially 550. I mean, we all can draw these trend lines. There's a little bit of confluence right around that 540, 550. I'm going to just say right now, I believe that AMD will not be able to break above that resistance line. And if it does, I think it'll be a fake out because we know it's a counter trend bounce. And I think for whatever reason, I don't know what the news is going to be. Maybe you guys can entertain me. For those of you guys who've been in AMD and you guys are following the news, there'll be something. Maybe it's just like an AI sell-off, something to scare you guys into selling your shares cheap. And there'll be another leg lower. But I'm going to tell you, when it hits that last leg lower, I do believe there's going to be something special in store. I do believe there's going to be something super, super duper special in store for AMD. And it's 1439. I think that would be not in one move, but that would be my long-term price target on AMD. And it would be doing something similar that that Tesla did. So let's take a look here. Going to the 2 hours, 1 hour, and we're going to go a 30-minute time frame. So far, it's been very, very choppy here. I could see it wants to kind of push higher here. 30 minutes kind of tell. Here's the beauty of this, actually. You can see that as soon as it breaks a 200-day moving average, I knew that AMD broke above the 200-day moving average right around there, and it kind of presented a potential strong risk-to-reward entry at 480. That would have been a decent kind of little short day trade. 5%. I mean, not really. That's not really considering the potential. There's a lot of potential here for AMD, but it was never easy. And let me tell you something here. There's another time, and this is on Twitter. You go on Twitter and on FinTwit. Do you know how many people got the bottom call out wrong on AMD over here? Right here. This was probably one of the most vicious sell-offs on AMD, and everybody got it wrong. Okay, I shouldn't say everybody. I'm sure there was a handful of people who got it right, but the mass majority of the vocal majority got it wrong. A lot of people were telling me, I'm going to buy AMD here. It's so oversold. I'm going to buy AMD. It's so oversold. So here's something to tell you. And this is a trick that works on Tesla. It works on AMD. It works on SoFi. It'll work on any stock that you want. I call it the double trendline break. Notice that a double trendline break guarantees that you don't get faked out buying the breakout. And we've all been there. We've all bought in the breakout. And I'm like, let's go. And then it just falls short. I can guarantee you there were a bunch of people who bought AMD right at 150 right here, only to feel stupid after it dropped like nearly 50% after that breakout. And this is why you wait for that second breakout. The second breakout, you can generate a second trend line. And this is something, this is a really cool, helps you stay out of trades. Notice that if I drew a second trend line, we didn't get the breakout until right here, right there. I think around May 2025 of last year. And if you had just waited, instead of buying that first breakout, you could have gotten a much better entry. Now, if we go back here, the same rules apply. We have one trend line. Are you going to get faked out on AMD if it gives you the breakout? Again, I'm just rewinding a bit. When AMD gave you a technical breakout, it gave you its biggest drop afterwards. If AMD gives you a technical breakout, I do believe you're going to get one of your bigger drops that may come. So personally, for me, I would be pursuing AMD cautiously. Now, I get it. People have a ton of money, a big chunk of their life savings, and nobody wants someone to come out and say, okay, my investment is going to go down. Like you're just a short hedge fund and screw you. Okay. Like I'm not saying this. I'm just telling you my opinion, and I'm gonna call it as it is. And I'm gonna tell you when I feel like it's ready to go, I'm gonna come out with another AMD video and let you know when it's ready to go. But I will be tracking AMD along the way here. And I'm curious if you're new to my channel here and you own AMD or you're looking at AMD here, let me know in the comment section. What do you think? Do you think I'm so wrong here? And maybe I got this wrong. I'm not going to go out and say I'm a genius. This is just my velocity framework. And under my velocity framework, there's not a good trade right now. To me, it's a counter trend bounce. What I think is going to end up happening, and I'll wrap things up and show you, is, I'll change that white. I think you'll get a bounce, and I think you'll get another flush lower. And then it'll go. And how that looks like from a 200-day moving average, we'll change that pink. I think it'll look something like this. It's never easy to time the bottom. It's never easy. And so you're going to get basically, this was your A wave down. It's okay. This is like obviously the big warning, like, okay, it's time to cool off. That's A. It's going to make the B bounce. And then you're going to get that C bounce lower. Now, that's just what technicals say. I know fundamentals tell a different story. So please don't shoot the messenger here. I'm just sharing my analysis. If you enjoyed my analysis here on AMD, Don't forget to smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel, and drop a comment section in the comments below if you're new here. I want to know if you're new here, and let me know what you thought of this presentation and if there was any questions at all. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend, and cheers.